When the Pittsburgh Steelers traded with the Seattle Seahawks for wide receiver DK Metcalf, fans were excited to land a quality skill player. However, the move was also met with plenty of backlash, and I was one of the biggest critics. Giving up a second-round pick for Metcalf only to turn around and hand him a 4-year, $131.9 million deal was a double-gut punch that cost the Steelers high draft capital and a top-5 contract among all NFL receivers. Though Metcalf is a quality player who has averaged over 1,000 yards per season over his first 6 years in the league, he's nowhere near a top-5 player at his position. Unfortunately, this is what the market demanded. But after the latest lucrative contract extension, we don't have much to gripe about. On Monday, ESPN insider Adam Schefter announced that the New York Jets have reached an agreement with wide receiver Garrett Wilson on a new deal that makes him one of the richest receivers in NFL history. Jets and wide receiver Garrett Wilson reached agreement on a 4-year, $130 million contract extension that includes $90 million guaranteed, Schefter announced on X. It marks the first time in NFL history that a receiver has received an average over $31 million after playing only 3 seasons. Wilson now will be under contract the next 6 seasons, through 2030. Agents Jeff Nally and Graylon Crane of CAA negotiated the deal with Jets executives Nick Sabella and Darren Moogie. Garrett made history with his massive contract extension, and his $31 million per season already topped players like Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, per over the cap. This new money average is similar to what the Steelers recently dished out to Metcalf, and when you look at the going rate of good wide receivers, Pittsburgh's front office is hardly the only team making heavy investments. Like Metcalf, Wilson's contract numbers came close to what superstars like Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb received on their lucrative deals last offseason, though we know Wilson isn't on par with the very best receivers in the league. The Pittsburgh Steelers can finally feel justified with DK Metcalf's contract extension after the Garrett Wilson deal. The market is changing rapidly, and the Pittsburgh Steelers now feel more justified than ever for handing DK Metcalf a massive contract. Wilson has only played 3 seasons in the NFL, and he's narrowly topped 1,000 yards in each year. Over this span, the former 2022 first-round pick has collected just 14 touchdowns on 469 targets while earning an underwhelming 48.4% success rate and a pedestrian 6.9 yards per target. Meanwhile, Jets quarterbacks have recorded a dismal passer rating of just 79.8 when targeting Wilson. Of course, many of these numbers are largely tied to the quarterback, and much of this is out of Wilson's control. But despite his lack of efficiency, he still became the first wide receiver in NFL history to earn $31 million per season after just 3 years in the league. On the other hand, Metcalf has similar production over the past 3 seasons, 3,154 yards and 19 touchdowns, but he did this on significantly fewer targets, 368 compared to 469. Likewise, Metcalf has been far more efficient, averaging 8.5 yards per target and aiding his quarterbacks to a 93.5 passer rating when targeted during this span. I would argue that both DK Metcalf and Garrett Wilson are overpaid, and their contracts shouldn't be so close to the truly elite NFL wide receivers. However, we know what the market looks like and how quickly it's rising. A year or 2 from now, it might even look like the Pittsburgh Steelers got a discount on Metcalf's contract extension. CB Darius Slay. Experience/age. 13th season, 34. Contract status. $10 million cap hit in 2025, after which scheduled for unrestricted free agency. The past, a second-round pick taken between Steelers selections of Jarvis Jones and Le'Veon Bell in the 2013 draft, Slay evolved into one of the best players for the Lions over his 7 seasons in Detroit. During his 5th, 6th, and 7th NFL seasons as part of the Lions, Slay was named to the Pro Bowl roster. That span began with a first-team All-Pro recognition after a 2017 season in which he tied for the NFL lead in interceptions with 8. But as things soured in Detroit under then-coach Matt Patricia, Slay was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for a pair of mid-round draft picks in March 2020. Signed to a lucrative contract extension, Slay made 3 Pro Bowl rosters with Philadelphia, scoring 4 defensive touchdowns and having 10 interceptions, including playoffs, while playing in 2 Super Bowls. He won a championship ring as part of an Eagles defense that shut down the Patrick Mahomes-led Kansas City Chiefs at Super Bowl 59 in February. But armed with a stable of high-level young cornerbacks and surely wanting to preserve cap space to keep their championship roster together, the Eagles released Slay this spring. 2025 Outlook. The Steelers signed him to a 1-year contract early in free agency, the 3rd consecutive season they added a veteran cornerback to start. All indications were that Slay would team with 3rd-year pro Joey Porter Jr. as the Steelers' outside corners. Slay has earned a reputation for being a solid mentor and leader in the locker room, and he expressed that he couldn't wait to work with Porter. How much, however, did things change after the trade last month with the Miami Dolphins that brought former All-Pro corner Jalen Ramsey to the Steelers? Ramsey has a slightly higher pedigree, and he is 4 years younger. Simply put, Ramsey probably slots ahead of Slay on the depth chart. But modern football isn't that cut and dried with sub-packages and positional flexibility. Also, that the Steelers submitted safety Minkah Fitzpatrick in the trade suggests that somebody, perhaps Ramsey or even possibly Slay, could line up deep in the secondary at times. Ramsey playing slot/nickel is another option. Slay wasn't given $10 million to be a backup, but where he plays has yet to be determined. One of the major storylines to follow early in training camp is how the secondary shakes out. Slay is a significant piece of the puzzle worth tracking. The Steelers need a wide receiver, and the 49ers just might have one for them. That's because Jennings wants the 49ers to give him a contract extension or trade him to a team that will give him the raise he has earned. And if the 49ers choose not to extend, they'll probably trade him to avoid a bitter contract drama that could overshadow training camp. And if they do trade him, the Steelers would be the #1 trade destination, according to Bleacher Report. Pittsburgh already acquired 1-star wideout this offseason in DK Metcalf, but the departure of George Pickens has left a noticeable void in the receivers' room, writes Bleacher Report's Alex K. The depth behind Metcalf is shaky at best right now, with Robert Woods and Calvin Austin III both poised to play major roles in 2025. Trading for Jennings could fill that hole and give Rodgers a pair of prolific receivers to work with during his 21st season. Jennings should be a relatively affordable option, something that should help a Pittsburgh squad that is just $24.4 million in available cap room at this juncture. According to Spotrac, the wideout has an estimated market value slightly north of $10 million per season, a figure the Steelers could easily fit on the books and still have room to add more depth if needed. Pittsburgh is flush with draft capital next year, having added a day 2 pick from the Dallas Cowboys to the coffers during the Pickens trade. That 2026 third-rounder could be leveraged as part of a package that springs Jennings free from San Francisco, especially if the Steelers are willing to part with the replacement receiver in the deal. Jennings would be an excellent fit next to Metcalf in the Steelers' offense. Unfortunately for Pittsburgh, the 49ers really can't afford to trade Jennings for a draft pick and a backup wide receiver. He's too important to their team because he's their best wide receiver. Even when Brandon Ayuk finally returns from his gruesome knee injury, there's no guarantee that he will be as good as Jennings, who's one of the toughest wide receivers in the league. I'm guessing the 49ers will extend Jennings within the next 2 weeks.